Hey guys, welcome to part B of this week's YouTube homework review. The secret word is best friend. I have to say, after teaching for 10 years, I've never had so many kids call me, "Sup, best friend?" It's kind of weird. But yep, secret word. The answer to the first one is 83 hundredths of a pound. On the back, the first answer is 2 and 67 hundredths pounds. Then A and B, we have 6 and 84 hundredths. B is 35 hundredths. C is negative 55 hundredths. And D is negative 35 hundredths. Yeah, that looks right. All right. Any of that confusing, you should definitely stick around and watch this video. Okay, so first, a basic review. We went over a whole video last week where we were really going over tenths and hundredths. So here we have just a representation of one whole. Here we have a representation of 1/10, which has a decimal, looks like this. And here's the representation of 1/100th. Right, and so we know that 10 of these would equal a whole, and 100 of these would equal a whole. That's why these decimals are called tenths and hundredths. So here's a word problem, and just from reading it, we should know if we need to add or subtract. The problem says Louis buys 56 hundredths of a pound of power pasta. Marlana buys 27 hundredths of a pound of power pasta. How much do they buy in all? All right, so how much do they buy in all? That's kind of like saying what's the total, and to find the total, we're adding. So I know that this problem is basically an addition of decimals problem. So I need to add these two decimals together. There are a couple ways to do it. Here what I did was I used iReady and lined it up using a place value chart. So notice that I have 56 pounds. The 56, the 5 is in the tenths place, and the 6 is in the hundredths place. And then adding 27 hundredths, that's like a 2 in the tenths place and a 7 in the hundredths place. And once we have these lined up, we can just start adding them together. 6 and 7 would make 13 hundredths, but I'm going to keep a 3 in the hundredths place because 13 hundredths, that gives us another tenth. And then 5 and 2 would be 7, plus that extra 1 would be 8 tenths. And then in this problem, we don't have any 1s, so it would be 0. 8 tenths and 3 hundredths, or 83 hundredths of a pound. Alright, this one's slightly trickier because of place value. The bake stars start with 3 and 5/10 pounds of power pasta. Louis and Marlana bought 83 hundredths of a pound. How much is left over? Left over, that makes me think that something's taken away and there's a new total. So that's subtraction. And what this is saying is if the bake stars started with 3 and 5/10 of a pound, Louis and Marlana bought this much, how much is left? So how much is left after we subtract? Based on the classworks from the past couple of weeks, this is the type of problem that tricks a lot of people because you guys will just sort of line things up not by place value. So let's take a look at a place value chart. So 3 and 5/10, here's a picture of it. That's like 3 holes, 1, 2, 3, and 5/10. And then we're taking away 83 hundredths of a pound. When you see this, you should realize that that's not even a whole yet. So down here in this place value chart, look at how we set this up. First, the 3 and 5/10, we have a 3 in the tenths place. We have a 5 we have a 3 in the ones place, a 5 in the tenths place, and then I added a 0 to the hundredths place because I know that 3 and 5/10 and 3 and 50 hundredths are equivalent to one another. Then underneath it, I very carefully substituted in 83 hundredths with an 8 in the tenths place and a 3 in the hundredths place. Now that we have the place values lined up, now we can subtract. So 0 minus 3, I need to get some hundredths to subtract because I can't do that. So from the tenths, I'm going to borrow 1/10, and 1/10 is the same as 10 hundredths. And now I can do 10 minus 3 gives us 7 hundredths. Next, we have 4 minus 8. Can't really do that either. So from the ones, I'm going to regroup. So I'm going to take 1, 1, change it into 10 tenths, and add it to those 4 tenths. And now 14 tenths minus 8 tenths would be 6 tenths. And then in the ones place, we just have a 2 minus a 0. So we have that. Your final answer should be 2 and 67 hundredths. All right, to connect this with what we've been doing in class, let's solve this on the open number line. So I'm going to draw mine horizontally, but you don't have to. We have 6 and 54 hundredths. Just to place 0, that's over here somewhere. And then we're going to add 3 tenths. Plus 3 tenths. So if I think about this, the 3 is going to combine with whichever of these 3 numbers is in the tenths place. So the 3 is going to combine with the 5, because the 5 is in the tenths place. So really, this answer will be 6 and 84 hundredths. And I'm willing to bet some people got 6 and 57 hundredths, but think of it this way. I need to take the 3 tenths, make sure that the 3 tenths goes underneath the tenths place, which is right here. And when we combine it that way, we get 6 and 8 tenths and 4 hundredths. All right, so let's try the second one. I'm going to do this one vertically. We start with 5 tenths, which is up over here. I know that 0 is going to be somewhere down here. And then we're subtracting 15 hundredths. If you're not thinking about place value, you might think, oh, we're starting at 5 and we're going down 15, so my answer is going to be negative. But that's not actually true, because this is 5 tenths. 5 tenths is like 5 dimes, which is the same as 50 cents or 50 hundredths. And rewriting the problem like this, now it gets a little bit easier to do. So I want to go down 15 hundredths. So I could break this up a little bit if I want. I'm going to go down 1/10 or 10 hundredths to get to 40 hundredths, which would leave us with 5 hundredths left over, which would give you 35 hundredths. So that is the answer to B. All right, now on to the 7th grade level problems. We have negative 75 hundredths plus 2 tenths. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite 2 tenths as 20 hundredths because I know that those are equivalent. And now I have a new, easier problem. So I'm going to come down here. The open number line really helps with negatives, so you can keep track of where you are in relation to 0. 0 is going to be somewhere up here. Negative 75 hundredths I'm going to put down here. And then since we're adding, we're going to be going up, and we're going to be getting closer to 0. But we're not just going up 2 hundredths. It's not going to become negative 73. We're going up 2 tenths, which is the same as going up 20 hundredths. So when I do that, it's sort of like subtraction because the numbers get smaller as you get closer to 0, and you should end up with negative 55 hundredths. And I bet some of you solved it as a fraction and got negative 55 hundredths like that, which is also totally fine. All right, last one. This one says 15 hundredths minus 5 tenths, but they're not tricking me with this 5 tenths. I know the answer is not just 10, because 5 tenths is the same as 50 hundredths. And now I have 15 hundredths minus 50 hundredths. All right, so 15 hundredths, I'm going to put right here. I know that 0 is going to be somewhere down here. And then I know if I'm going down 50 hundredths from 15 hundredths, I know I'm going to go past 0. So I'm going to break this up, go to the easy number 0 first by subtracting 15 hundredths. Then if I started with 50 hundredths and I took away 15, I could just do some subtraction over here to figure out how much left I have to go. And if I do that subtraction, you should end up with 35 hundredths left. It's kind of a bigger jump. And you should end up at negative 35 hundredths. Alright, so I hope this decimal review was helpful, and I hope you're starting to get the hang out of these last problems because they're at the state test level. I'll see you for the next part.